What is with everyone sucking the dick of the new Godzilla movie? Nothing against anyone who's a Godzilla fan, but fucking hell.
They had 5 years to work on this film, and I do not understand why the characters are robots. I don't understand why the story is ludicrous.
And I'm just gonna cut right to the chase. The first movie was better, and by the first movie I mean the 23rd Godzilla movie, but for the sake of this movie being a sequel to the last movie, I'm gonna call it the first movie. 2014 Godzilla, I just thought it was better.
Learn how to light your CGI, you hack! Yes, I did watch King of the Monsters.
I saw this film and I said to myself, okay, yeah, the parts with the monsters were cool. Unfortunately, that's only 25% of the film, and the other 75% of it is based on really bad, stupid human storytelling with really bad, stupid human motivations.
My very first impression walking out of King of the Monsters was disappointment. Not outright disappointment in the sense of it being a bad movie, but more a sense of being underwhelmed.
This is Mike Doherty has got some balls. That guy's got some balls. He said, fuck the general audience. I'm going to give it to the fans, and if it doesn't make sense to the general audience, oh well.
Movies suck now. So here we are now, 4 months after King of the Monsters release, and it's already out on Blu-ray. Before I go any further into the video, behind the montage at the beginning of this, let me say 2 different things. 1, all of the clips featured were taken out of context, so go check out the original creators from their perspectives for the full context. Links are provided. And 2, I'll mention at the end of this review, time code included. You're all in for a treat. And bear this in mind, this is an introduction with some context, history, and explanation before beginning the actual review. If you don't care, then this is where the review starts for you cowards. If not, let's continue. So to start off, I had to really think about this. Not only about the film itself, but the state of things surrounding it with both critics, fans, and of course the actual movie itself. And a little bit about the aftermath. I really did not want to make this kind of video. I absolutely wanted the film to succeed and be a great film. I was hoping this film would kick off the summer to a great start, kick Aladdin's ass, seriously though, fuck this movie, and bring forth a great sequel. From the looks of it, it promised to be a great film down to every detail, especially after keeping track of the film's production. I myself was very excited to see it. I've waited for 5 years for this movie to be made. This was a movie I was looking forward to all year when it came closer to release. I said to myself I was going to see this film 4 times for myself because of how busy, depressing, and rather in general, sad my life had been at the time. And well, here it is. And did I see this movie 4 times? Nope. 1 time, and 1 time only, and I didn't even need to pay for it. I got a free screening the week before it was even released. But to go back even further, Godzilla 2014 was a big thing I've always looked forward to as a kid. Godzilla was practically gone for 10 years exactly, and when it was announced they would be making another Godzilla film, I lost my mind. I've waited since 2010 for the film to come out, and by the time the first trailer hit, I was losing my mind, excited to see the Big G hit American theaters in the right way he deserves. And when I went to go see it, I was rather disappointed in my first viewing. However, with my second viewing, I had a blast, and I found something new each viewing and began to love this film even more. Despite what everyone says about the film not having enough Godzilla and boring actors aside from Ken Watanabe, Sally Hawkins, and of course Bryan Cranston, I still believe it was a fantastic movie. Not a flawless one, mind you, but a fantastic movie and a well-deserved Godzilla movie. And before I get into King of the Monsters itself, I wanted to say something else about film in general and something I've noticed since 2016. Movies have been getting worse as we go. Not just with the Godzilla franchise, kinda, but everywhere. Marvel, Star Wars, DC, Disney, Jurassic Park, Terminator, and so many more. For the past 4 years after 2015, the standards for good quality has drastically gone down. There hasn't been that many good films, or rather they range from mediocre to pretty good. Identity politics is one thing we may go into another time, but bad craftsmanship in filmmaking is another.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
No one cares anymore, or is not the least bit willing to put the effort into making good movies. And as much as I would love to go into detail talking about this specific topic with the SJW takeover in Hollywood, identity politics, I have no place to say as of now because I am not getting involved in any of this shit because none of that really matters to what I'm talking about because I am only covering a review of Godzilla. And from what I can see, Godzilla is one of the many who's stayed away from identity politics and other bullshit. I can go into much greater detail about my experience as a moviegoer and how the film industry is not at all getting better, but for now, we're talking about Godzilla King of the Monsters. And by all means as we go along, feel free to point out any mistakes I make in this review and so on. This will better improve my writing and my craft when I continue these kinds of videos in terms of critique, review, and so forth in the future. here. Now then, how does this hold up as a movie? And how does it hold up as a Godzilla film? Well, I can surely tell you that as a Godzilla movie, it is the best. It has the best of monster fighting, references any one of us G fans will love, and it is an enjoyable movie at the very least. It is a beautiful film to say, and often at times it left an impression of some memorable moments when it came to the monsters and the action scenes. The monsters are no doubt treated as characters, just like what the director Michael Dougherty promised. The monsters are indeed characters. Keep that comment in mind when I talk about Michael Dougherty at the end of this review. They have respect for their presence on screen. They are given justice when it came to the final battles. Their designs are spot on. Ghidorah has separate individual thinking heads. Rodan's a savage. Mothra has beautiful presence, and they were all very entertaining to watch. And the world building relating to the monsters was actually a great concept. However, a concept can only get you so far. The execution to the build up of these monsters was rather disappointing, and this is where the film begins to crash and burn, sadly. By concept, this film is amazing, but when it came to the execution and the final product, we are left with an average B movie. Godzilla King of the Monsters is sadly a terrible movie in every way, shape, and form. But before I go into more detail, do I like this movie? Yes. Is this a good movie? Not even close. Is this a good Godzilla movie? Yes. Is this movie entertaining? Yes. And do I hate this movie? No, because that hate rightfully goes to the Spawn of Satan anime trilogy on Netflix. And believe me, we'll get into those with much greater detail someday. Don't you fucking worry. And trust me when I say this, each time I came back to work on this review, the closer I came to absolutely hating the film. And I don't want to hate everything, let alone the one thing my channel was built on, Godzilla. And allow me to finish by saying that the week before this movie was being released, Rotten Tomatoes and critics alike were basically saying that the movie was bad or rather disappointing. Like myself, I was also part of that group that was disappointed. However, once we started getting closer to the release date, I found it rather interesting and heartwarming from the fact that people didn't care for the criticisms. What I mean is that the biggest complaint were the human characters, the plot itself, and half of the stuff in this movie making no sense. Granted, I thought the same thing about these issues, but people didn't really care for that. And I can see why. Godzilla has had a history with its human characters not being memorable, or they were poorly written, developed improperly, and so on. For the most part, anyway. Because here's another factor to this argument. There are so many Godzilla films that actually do put forth competent, worthy, and memorable characters. So to put it to rest, the argument of saying humans don't matter and you're only going to see Godzilla is not an excuse. Yes, that argument is partially true for most audiences. This argument is going to continue throughout this review as much as I will pick apart this movie. But now let me bring forth another argument that is very important and one that I almost missed while writing this intro. Just because you go to a movie for one reason, it is not an excuse to be lazy or to completely forget about what is the most important thing about a movie: the characters, the writing, and the story that's being presented. Let me give you 3 examples: Jurassic Park, Pacific Rim, and of course these 2 Godzilla movies. Jurassic Park had memorable characters, good writing, and a competent story, and when the dinosaurs were there, you felt something for the characters to survive, build up, and pay off. Now compare it to Jurassic World. Fallen Kingdom. It's a blast with endless dinosaurs, characters that are just there with no dimension and motivations that are genuinely stupid and nothing else to latch onto. Nothing in that film was given the least bit of care for the story and writing anyway, because none of it makes any sense whatsoever and it's universally hated by anyone that is not a child. Pacific Rim had an interesting story, awesome badass characters, and a stylish spectacle with some effort and genuine passion for the project by Guillermo del Toro. Uprising was just made as a cash grab. It had a dumb story, terrible writing, terrible payoff, a god-awful plot, really bad direction, and decent at best effects. And now Godzilla. The first film had an interesting plot and story, interesting characters, for the most part, really great performances, for the most part, and really awesome monster action, for the most part. Now then, King of the Monsters we're going to go into much greater detail as much as possible. But do you see a pattern here that I'm putting forth? Great established films that then spawn mediocre to absolute trash sequels. Mind you, I'm not referring to King of the Monsters in this specific scenario as a trash movie, and you'll find out why by the end of this review. But to keep in mind, there is so much wrong with this movie looking back, but my god, this is a bad movie. No matter how much the hardcore Godzilla fan in me wants to deny it, I as a moviegoer cannot. And then again, I didn't know what to expect in all honesty, but for my defense, I will be explaining into much greater detail later on. Now this may seem like a terribly written opening to this review. I can't blame you, it's a fucking mess. But for the sake of argument, I have to go into so much detail by providing examples and references in addition to what I'm talking about in order to defend myself or get my point across. Hence why most of what I'll be talking about may go off a little topic, but is still relevant to the argument. And on a final note about the MonsterVerse itself, to those who complain about Godzilla and King Kong getting a shared cinematic universe, get the fuck over it. Godzilla was one of the most earliest incarnations of a cinematic universe after the first film. Hell, the shared universe can be traced back to the Universal's classic monsters. So no, Marvel did not invent the shared universe idea, and despite every fucking studio trying to copy off of the MCU's success, why is anyone surprised about Godzilla getting one? It makes sense, and at the very least, despite what I am going to be talking about, the MonsterVerse is at the very least taking its time, and some of that does show. For the most part. It took 5 years to make King of the Monsters, about 4 for Skull Island, 4 for Godzilla 2014, and about the same amount of time with the upcoming Godzilla vs. Kong. While every MCU films takes only about less than 2 years and is released almost year-round, and at best have ranged from being very meh to pretty good and nothing else. Don't get me started on Endgame. That movie is bad. What both the MonsterVerse and the MCU share is a sense of being fun. You can have fun with these movies no matter what, despite their imperfections. And as time goes on, both of these franchises, specifically the MonsterVerse and the MCU, have nothing after 2020. Because from that panel alone, I am not excited. And I can guarantee you that no matter how many people want to deny it, a lot of people don't even care about the Marvel movies anymore. Now that finally brings us to our review. So now, here are my thoughts on Godzilla King of the Monsters as both a Godzilla fan and a moviegoer, scene by scene. So the film opens up with a stylish sequence of the studio logos. Very nice. I find that really cool. And then we hear Godzilla roar on a black screen. And frankly, I was getting hyped for this film just from hearing one of the original Godzilla roars mixed in with the 2014 one. So it's 2014 in San Francisco during the Muto attacks where they are introduced to our main characters, Dad, Mother, and young Millie Bobby Brown, looking for their lost child / brother, Andrew. The characters look around to find their lost child to then look up to see Godzilla beautifully stomping through the city, and then we cut to modern day. Okay, there's a lot to take in from this that I can formally say is wrong, or rather can be improved on more specifically. Let me start by saying, every film up to now, to include Skull Island, has had an opening sequence to get you properly hyped for the film and also build up what's established in this MonsterVerse. But here, we just get right into it. Yep, no introduction, just a family of our main characters witnessing Godzilla's destruction and then cut to current time. No opening credits and no opening title. This film missed a perfect opportunity. Like Skull Island in 2014, their openings introduced both the world, the setting for the film, the Monarch organization, the monsters themselves, and even showed some details that related to the characters in the film. Those openings even built up what would be paid off later on, that being either the monsters, the characters as mentioned, setting, or just world building in general. Here, we have nothing to go off of, and we have no idea what has happened between the events of Godzilla 2014 and this film. Nothing. And no, do not give the excuse of it was explained in the promotion material and most likely in the prequel comics. Allow me to explain something. Nobody should have to go to material that is outside of the movie for missing explanations or information. That is just lazy writing and storytelling all on its own. And by the way, I myself know some information from the promotional material anyway, and frankly, we will get into those much later because boy oh boy, it doesn't help this film. But as of now, we are left with nothing within these first few minutes other than the introduction to our main characters. And speaking of the opening credits, we'll talk about that again towards the end of this review, don't you worry. Actually, now that I think of it, why do so many films nowadays don't have opening titles? Show us the damn title, give us at least something to get us hyped for the movie we're watching. Why put the title at the end when the movie is over? Seriously. Anyway, we open up to our main characters, or at least to Mother and Millie Bobby Brown. And yes, I'm going to refer to some of these characters of their designated names I gave them, because when you watch this movie, you're not going to remember any of their names. If you do, however, good for you actually. And once again, we will probably be discussing the characters from time to time in the way they are written and also in relation to what fans think of this film. Meaning, truth be told, you're not going to give a shit. Even with Millie Bobby Brown in this movie and also Charles Dance, you're not going to care. Mother is in her room watching a news report on what has happened before in this world after the 2014 events, letting us know that the world is aware of the existence of giant monsters, or at the very least what they call them, titans. This is fair enough in terms of catching up, but again, I still find it to be lazy for the most part. Is there anything else that has happened after those events? Nothing? People are still talking about this event? Sure, it's not like anyone will forget, because frankly, an entire major city was destroyed. Fair enough. But here's the thing. How the hell does the public know of Monarch? They never knew anything in the past 2 films. The only people to know of their existence is just the military and government of different nations. Also, on a side note, we will be talking more about Monarch as a whole in this universe. But here with this exposition on a fucking TV screen is absolutely lazy. And they're reusing actual footage from the first film. Not from another angle. No, the exact shot from the first film. How the fuck did people in this world get this kind of footage? Did Gareth Edwards leak some notes through the fourth wall or something? Because if not, I'm seeing some absolute laziness with the effects team. And okay, I have to pause the review here. Please note, I may miss some details regarding the film and what I talk about. So keep in mind, again, if I miss anything in terms of information, feel free to let me know know, so I may keep that in mind and correct myself for future critiques or reviews, or maybe even do a correction video. I am not perfect, and I certainly do not know everything, especially when it comes to critiquing, and I am bound to be wrong about key details in this review. Anyway, Millie Bobby Brown is browsing through her email as she receives one from Dad. Dad shows her some photos of wolves and how cool they are, and saying that he misses her. This plays more into Dad's character as we go on, but for now, it's rather a great moment regardless of how small it is. And also executed poorly. Emails in movies aren't exactly lazy and can be done right, but when you have characters writing separate lines or ending their sentences with ... then it doesn't feel right in how an actual conversation would go through an email. Just like in Batman vs. Superman, that moment of exposition was terrible. Not to mention, emails are kinda lazy in the regard when it comes to exposition, but I digress. We get information that the family has been split off, maybe not divorced, but it's never really explained into detail. Which begs the question, and this is just in general for the sake of it, is any of this really relevant? Well, for writing and character development, absolutely, but for this kind of film, not at all really. And in case anyone gets confused of what exactly I'm going on about, I am discussing everything relating to this film, both as a moviegoer who wants to go to movies and a Godzilla fan. That's why some of my points will be the way they are, and my review may become confusing at certain points despite how much I've wrote and already had to rewrite and explain myself, because I am no doubt bound to fuck up something. But for now, in short, what should have been done is taking this bit out of the film completely and reshooting it for something else as filler that feels a little more genuine. Maybe Millie Bobby Brown tries to reach her father, but she fails many times and is heartbroken that she may never see her father again. I don't know. At least something other than a fucking email. Continuing, Mother walks in to talk with her as we get some dialogue between the two. Now, it gets a little cliche, or cringy rather. Take your pick. The writing is a roller coaster in this film. Mother explains how she knows how hard it is. They'll get through this together. I miss Dad, and so forth. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. As much of the dialogue I will be paraphrasing for the sake of this review and also my terrible memory. I was really now under the impression that the characters wouldn't be the best and rather rushed, or say, I don't know, weak? But why should I be surprised? For fuck's sake. Mother also explains how she finally finished a device she's been working on. This will be the device that plays a major MacGuffin throughout the entire film. We'll get more into this later because there's a lot relating to this device. An earthquake happens with a roar as it is revealed they are both at a monarch outpost outside of an ancient temple. Okay. They then go down to the temple as it is revealed that Mothra is about ready to hatch from her egg. Okay. And then our beautiful Mothra is born in her lovely larva form. Awesome! Mother and her colleagues try to cage up Mothra until a malfunction happens as Mothra goes onto a scared rampage, webbing up all the guards that were near her. Hey, what do you know? Rian Johnson makes a cameo in this and rightfully dies by Mothra. Oof, I think this movie is starting to win me over. Fun fact, when I watched this for the first time, I completely forgot Mothra was able to spew webs, which we'll get into much later also. Mother then runs outside with the new device she's been working on, and Deus Ex Machina, Mothra stops her rampage and calms down. Oh, and also Millie Bobby Brown ran out to be with her mother. Really shows Monarch's standards for security. Hint, hint. Also, I'm not sure how Mother managed to walk right on out without a radiation suit on, cause, you know, radiation is a thing in these films, so she should be infected or slowly dying. So they managed to create a machine that communicates with monsters. And yes, it is not just with Mothra, it is with other monsters. Cool, I can't wait to see how that's explained. Yes, I know they showed that she needed a sample of monster in order to communicate with, but in a tense situation they just went through, it seems rather inconvenient, no? Well then, we are then interrupted as a group of terrorists barge right in and start shooting up the place led by Charles Dance. And then cut. Yep, nothing else. These terrorists just show up out of nowhere and we cut to the next scene. You sure we wouldn't want to see what would happen next with this new character we're introduced to? No? Wait, never mind. This would be getting ahead of myself. And while we're still here at the temple, the build-up to Mothra felt rather rushed, and especially the temple itself was rather disappointing. We've been teased Mothra many times before with production photos and whatnot, but we just walk right past all of that just to go straight into the temple and get things started. I find that to be a smart way to get this action movie to start, but here's the thing. Movies need to take their time both explaining things and building stuff up. We're only about 10 minutes in. We need explanations and better build up to Mothra. This film does not take its time just so we can get into the monster action. Granted, for the type of movie we are watching, that makes perfect sense actually. And it is forgivable to an extent, but it is immediately unforgivable from the film's editing. It's rather jarring and terrible. Too many cuts that don't need to be made, some sequences and scenes aren't given enough time for us to process information, and the build-ups and what else can easily be missed or it's rather executed poorly. All of which makes sense for a fast-paced monster action movie, but Jesus Christ, the editing and the effects work are so fucking terrible. And on another note, I know that 5 years is a long time, but how the fuck does Monarch have this much of an advanced outpost or research center? Yes, technology can advance a lot in 5 years, but not to the extent of the fucking Avengers. This monsterverse is set in modern time, our real world. That was already established with the previous film. How does Monarch go from this type of research center to all of this advanced technology? How did they even get the funding? And from who? It's a fucking laser cage, for Christ's sake. Last time I checked, they were using regular electric fences to contain the damn Mutos. How the fuck did they get lasers? Did the public panic and say they want Monarch to protect the world from these monsters? How are there 17? Wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. But for now, Monarch is just fucking S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Monsterverse. Great. Also, on a side note, while at this point in the film, I was genuinely thinking to myself, please don't be another Fallen Kingdom movie. And with that comparison brought into play, I will come back to that. God fucking damn it. Now let's continue. We are brought to a Senate meeting with returning characters, Serizawa, Sally Hawkins, military commander, and then a new character, Tech Zek. They are discussing with, I believe to be the US Senate, about the discovery of Titans, monsters, and kaiju after 2014. They debate whether or not they should kill these creatures, but more specifically Godzilla. And then we get these lines.
So you'd want to make Godzilla our pet?
No. We will be his.
And to my knowledge, this doesn't really play much into the film because as far as I'm concerned, Godzilla didn't interact much with our human characters and didn't really use them per se. I may be wrong on this, but from my interpretation, this line doesn't really have much payoff. Other than the humans following him wherever he goes and they fight alongside him then, I can't pull any moment in time where Godzilla uses the humans as his pets. Again, I may be totally wrong and I'm welcome for people to point me out on this, but the humans can just go fuck all. They also discuss how the Titans are just animals, explaining why they are rising to reclaim the world, giving exposition explaining what caused their awakening with atomic testings, and a whole lot of stuff that is shoved down your throats within the span of 5 minutes. Jesus Christ. They are then notified that one of the outposts guarding Mothra was taken out by a bunch of terrorists. They leave as Tech Zek leaves the senators with stock footage from the 2014 film of the two Mutos meeting each other, but censored for the sake of a joke. And how the fuck did they get this footage at this specific angle? It's literally the same footage from the first film. Maybe Michael Daugherty is making a callback to the Showa era where they used stock footage, but they had budget cuts. You guys clearly don't. Not to mention, the Mutos had EMPs as a weapon. Everything in San Francisco was cut off. How the fuck does footage exist? Also, I'm no expert with politics and whatnot, but I'm pretty sure what they just did is illegal. Even the freaking military guy is looking at them like, guys, what the fuck? Also, are we now referring to the Mutos as a regular species and not massive unidentified terrestrial organisms? Because those things didn't actually have a name in this universe. Hell, you guys had 15 fucking years anyway to give the fuckers an actual name. You've named all other 17 Titans, so why not these guys? And they even name dropped King Kong. And they used the exact same footage in that film. Fucking Christ. So now we cut to Dad in the wild, listening to some wolves as they eat a dead deer. Pretty gruesome, actually, not gonna lie. But here's the thing, as much monster violence we get in this movie, there's no blood. This ain't a kid's movie, clearly. Show some goddamn bloody violence with the monsters. A helicopter lands near him with a Monarch logo on the side as Serizawa, Tech Zek, and Sally Hawkins walk off to inform him of the news. They give exposition as to what happened and why Dad's family was taken, and also some exposition on Charles Dance's character. They know nothing until later. I had to correct myself here, so this is what I had to say about them finding about Charles Dance and the terrorists. Again, what I say happens a little bit later in the film. So wait, they knew about him this whole time? Why didn't they just kill him when they had the chance many times before? And now I see why we made an abrupt cut from the beginning, so that way we can have exposition given to us through a laptop. Great! Unbelievable. Talking about characters through other characters with information pulled up at the ready on a fucking laptop or screen is fucking lazy. Introducing characters through dialogue is not wrong, but what's wrong here is its execution. This technique has obviously been done before, but there was build-up, tension, and eventually payoffs in other movies. This movie comes back and forth with Charles Dance, and he has little payoff towards the end. Hell, he can be taken out of the movie entirely, come to think of it, but that would be getting ahead of ourselves. We are also told that Dad worked for Monarch before, as the device, the Orca, was originally his idea, but then he scrapped it completely as it was only intended to warn off larger animals. Yet Mother managed to uncover the information on how to build another one. Alright then, whatever, sounds like a stable family to me. And for the rest of the film, the Orca is going to be playing as our MacGuffin, Deus Ex Machina, and so what keeps the family safe and sound. Not to mention, they later find out that Mother reconstructed the device using different Titan frequencies, and also an additional one they are unable to figure out.
Keep that in mind, I'm not done with it yet.
We get some additional exposition as to what happened with the family after the San Francisco attacks, as Dad explains he started drinking and Mom focused on trying to save the world. Wow, those cliches could not be any more contrasting if they tried. Instead of coming back to Charles Dance, Mother, and Millie Bobby Brown, we stick with Dad and the others as we go to another Monarch outpost in the Pacific where they are monitoring Godzilla. Now here's the thing, it looks like a regular oil station, or some kind of station, But once they land, the entire landing bay turns into an elevator to then reveal this highly elaborate advanced base where they monitor Godzilla. So you really mean to tell me we went from one fucking Monarch station monitoring one Muto for 15 years with modern technology into something like this with only 5 fucking years? Jesus Christ, where's our flying cars? And not only that, but there are 17 of these motherfuckers. And you really mean to tell me that all 17 of these titans, not including King Kong, were discovered within the past 5 years? How the fuck? 5 years? How do you get the funding, the time, energy, and resources to build all these elaborate things on top of discovering different monsters? This movie makes no fucking sense. Oh, just calm down, CGF. It's only a Godzilla movie. Oh yeah, right. That'll calm me down. Thank you very much. What's even worse about this is that all the other outposts are about this advanced and containing the Titans. How? I don't fucking know. The movie doesn't explain. They're just here and expected to be accepted. And, well, I don't. I don't accept any of this. Maybe if the actual film itself wasn't in real time and was set for like another 2 extra years from now, then maybe I can accept it with that amount of time. But no. 5 years for all of this implausible bullshit? This is not the fucking MCU. Fuck. So Dad is then brought down into the base as there's a Muto head put on display. Why, you ask? I don't have a clue. Maybe for fan service or a callback, but even then, I myself as a fan was confused. We get a brief moment of the Monarch organization and they're a bunch of joking, nonsensical, nerdy idiots who crack jokes that are a lot more missed than hits and speak a bunch of quick exposition so we can move right along. We have old guy, Asian woman, commando later, oh shit. Awesome, I totally connect with everyone. They arrive in record time too because Godzilla then arrives as Dad has all the answers to everything, ordering everyone to open the doors as Godzilla arrives glowing. And on a side note, before I go further, before he says this, they all prepare to fire at Godzilla and bunker up. Why? You've already established before that you're debating against killing Godzilla. So why would you bother installing these underwater highly advanced cannons? Sure, you need protection against God-fucking-Zilla. But wouldn't there be any other alternatives like signals, sonars, or literally anything else that can push him back and keep him away in a safer manner? And now that I think of it, if this is supposedly his hideout you found, how the hell did this place even get built? Let alone it being the supposed hideout of Godzilla. You think that would be an issue if you're not even halfway finished building the base and he just so happens to stop by and destroy all of you because you're a threat. And within 5 years, I highly doubt you would ever have this much of an advanced underwater base. Even if Godzilla's been missing, there's still no way. Alright, it's a Godzilla movie. I shouldn't have to think this hard. God damn it. And when did they know to back off instead of Dad telling them? Yes, I know Serizawa told them first for safety, but why is Dad the one who elaborates more on this? You think a zoology organization would know this, but no. Dad has to be the one to tell everyone to stand down instead of them already knowing what to do. Jesus. So Godzilla arrives glowing, showing off an intimidation display, and then he blacks out. But then jump scares everyone swimming around in circles and then fucks off. They manage to track where he's going as, you guessed it, he leads everyone to the Arctic where other characters are. Now for our first buildup of a monster, Godzilla's underwhelming. Compared to 2014, he makes himself look like an amateur here. And why hasn't he done something like this when it came to fighting the Mutos? Fuck if I know. Movie never explains his abilities other than intimidation display. Also, I'm fine with the change in his dorsal plate since every Godzilla movie has a tradition of Godzilla's look consistently changing because of the quality of the suit, but also his design is always changing, no matter what. And before anyone says anything about the prequel comic or the other outside material, let me start by saying I don't care. Yes, they're cool, I'll admit, but they are irrelevant to the movie itself. The movie, not the universe that's been set up for continuity and whatever else, the movie. If it's not explained in the movie, then the writing is lacking, and I don't care.
Unfortunately, this is where the review is going to end for the sake of time and also editing. I can't exactly give an exact date of when part 2 of this will be released, but as of now, I won't be able to edit a full entire video of this review. Maybe sometime in late October, but then again, I can't give an exact date. So I've decided to upload this entire review into different parts for the sake of editing as mentioned and also time's sake. There's a lot going on in my personal life and hopefully everyone can understand this. With that said, this entire review will continue as a series. I'm hoping this will be a 3-part series as the last part may be uploaded around the 65th anniversary.
What? Ah! Yeah, you butterfingered pink thing! What's in that box anyhow?
My wallets.
Ah!
Dude! SpongeBob! Tickle him!
It tickles, but it's worth it!